I sat in the lawyer's office, my hands gripping the arms of the leather chair. My mother sat to my left, my father to my right, and my sister Jessica directly across from me. The air smelled like polished wood and expensive paper, the scent of formalities and final decisions. We were all here for one reason: the reading of my grandfather's will. Jessica was practically glowing with excitement. Ever since we were children, she had always been the favorite. Grandpa adored her, showering her with gifts, praising her every word. Me? I was tolerated at best. He never outright mistreated me, but there was always a quiet distance between us, as if he had already decided I wasn't worth his time. Maybe I had always known deep down that today wouldn't go in my favor. But still, I hoped for something, even if it was just a token, a gesture that acknowledged I was part of this family. The lawyer, an older man with silver-rimmed glasses, adjusted his papers. He cleared his throat and began reading. Jessica will inherit the property in Malibu, the family's bank account, and all shares of the company. I blinked. That was everything. The entire estate, the entire fortune. There wasn't much left to divide after that, but surely there had to be something for me. I sat up a little straighter, waiting for him to continue. The lawyer's expression was unwritable. And for Emma, he paused, glancing at me, she will receive $1. For a second, I thought I had misheard. Excuse me? I asked. He repeated himself. Emma is to inherit exactly $1. A thick silence filled the room. My mother let out a quiet sigh but didn't meet my eyes. My father, as usual, said nothing. And Jessica? She smiled. Well, she said, reaching for the glass of water in front of her, $1 is still money. Then, as if on cue, Ryan, our older brother who had only shown up at the last minute, more interested in his business on the California coast than in family affairs, laughed. A full, hearty laugh. Don't spend it all at once, Emma. He joked, grinning at me as if this was all some grand comedy. The others laughed too. Even my mother chuckled under her breath. And that was the moment it hit me. Not just the unfairness of the situation, but the sheer indifference. They weren't even trying to pretend they cared. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. My stomach felt hollow, my throat tight, but I refused to let them see it. I had spent years learning how to hide disappointment, how to mask hurt behind an indifferent smile. So I did what I had always done. I stayed quiet. I took the envelope containing my single-dollar bill, nodded stiffly at the lawyer, and left the room without another word. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't call anyone to complain. I just walked. I walked through the city streets, past storefronts and office buildings, until I found myself back in my tiny 300-square-foot apartment. I tossed the envelope onto my kitchen table and stared at it. $1. That was my entire inheritance. That was what my family thought I was worth. I let out a laugh. A bitter, hollow sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Don't spend it all at once, I whispered, mimicking Ryan's voice. The words rang in my ears, over and over, until suddenly, I wasn't laughing anymore. I sank into a chair, pressing my palms against my face. It wasn't just about the money. It was the realization that I had never truly belonged, that I had been nothing more than an afterthought in their eyes. For years, I had been the odd one out. Jessica was the golden child, the one who always knew what to say, how to act. She played her role perfectly, nodding along to Grandpa's outdated opinions, showering him with the validation he craved. And in return, he gave her everything: attention, praise, and now wealth. I had never been able to play that game. I asked too many questions. I challenged too many of his beliefs. I had opinions, and I voiced them. And because of that, I was dismissed. I thought back to all the little moments, the signs I should have noticed earlier. Christmas, when I was 9, and Grandpa gave Jessica a massive teddy bear while I got an old dictionary. Smart girls read, he had said without even looking at me. Jessica's 18th birthday, when he surprised her with a brand new BMW X5, while I had to save up for a second-hand bicycle. Every single time he brushed off my achievements, no matter how hard I worked. Every single time my mother told me to just let it go, because that's just how he is. I had spent years pretending it didn't matter, that I didn't care. But now, sitting in my tiny apartment, staring at that $1 bill, I finally let myself admit the truth. It hurt. I should have been angry. I should have wanted to call them and demand an explanation. But instead, All I felt was an overwhelming sense of relief, because now at least it was over. For years, I had held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, they would see me, that they would recognize me as part of the family, as someone worth acknowledging. But now, I had my answer. I meant nothing to them. And if that was the case, then maybe it was time to let them mean nothing to me too. I sat up straighter, my fingers grazing the edge of the envelope. I had spent so long trying to earn their approval, but what had it ever brought me? Pain, disappointment, a lifetime of feeling like an outsider in my own family. No more. I picked up the dollar bill, turning it over in my hands. It was just a piece of paper, worthless on its own. But maybe, just maybe, I could turn it into something more. I wasn't sure what yet. I had no plan, no roadmap. All I knew was that I had to start somewhere. And that somewhere? It began with leaving them behind. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and opened a blank document. The screen glowed in the dim light of my apartment. I had nothing to lose. No safety net, no family to fall back on. But maybe that was a good thing. Maybe, for the first time in my life, I was truly free. I'd love to say I was shocked when my grandfather left me with just $1, but the truth is, I wasn't. Disappointed? Sure. But surprised? Not in the slightest. Looking back, the signs had always been there. Ever since we were kids, my sister Jessica had been the golden child. The one who could do no wrong, the one who knew how to say all the right things, the one who played the role of the perfect granddaughter flawlessly. I, on the other hand, never quite fit into that mold. I wasn't rebellious, but I also wasn't the type to stay silent and nod along. I had opinions, and worse, I voiced them. I asked questions, I challenged traditions, and I refused to let someone else decide how I should think. Grandpa didn't like that. And because of that, he never really liked me. It wasn't blatant cruelty, it was more like a quiet indifference. Jessica got attention, praise, expensive gifts. I got nothing. I should have seen it coming. I should have expected it. But somehow, sitting in that lawyer's office, hearing my name followed by a single dollar bill, still managed to sting. And the worst part? No one cared. Not my mother, who barely looked at me before sighing uncomfortably. Not my father, who said nothing, just as he always had. Not even Jessica, who smiled as if it was all some inside joke. And certainly not my older brother Ryan, who laughed and said, "Don't spend it all at once." The way they all dismissed me, was worse than the will itself. It wasn't just about the money, it was about what the money represented. And to them, I was worth nothing. I didn't go home right away after leaving the lawyer's office. Instead, I walked through busy city streets, past cafes and office buildings, past people going about their lives without a care in the world. I just kept walking, trying to process it all. Eventually, I found myself outside a small diner, the kind with old-school booths and checkered floors. I hadn't eaten all day, so I stepped inside, slid into a booth near the window, and ordered a cup of coffee. As I sat there, stirring my drink absent-mindedly, my mind drifted back to the past, to every little moment that should have prepared me for today. Christmas. Age 9. It was Christmas Eve at Grandpa's house. The tree was enormous, covered in twinkling lights and gold ribbons. Beneath it, presents were stacked high, too many to count. Jessica was given a massive teddy bear, almost the size of an adult. Grandpa beamed as he handed it to her, watching as she squealed in delight. Then it was my turn. I unwrapped my gift to find a dictionary. "Smart girls read," Grandpa said, barely glancing at me. My mother nudged me lightly, as if reminding me to say thank you. I forced a smile. "Thank you, Grandpa." He didn't even respond. Jessica's 18th birthday. Grandpa had always believed that turning 18 was a milestone worth celebrating. So when Jessica's 18th birthday arrived, he made a big deal out of it. At the party, which was as extravagant as a small wedding, he surprised her with a BMW X5. A brand new, sparkling luxury car. I remember standing there, watching as Jessica shrieked with excitement, hugging Grandpa as he handed her the keys. She hadn't even asked for a car. And then I thought about my own 18th birthday. There had been no party, no gifts, no BMW. The only thing I had gotten that year was a secondhand bicycle, which I had to save up for myself. College decision day. I got accepted into my dream university, a prestigious school known for its business program. I had worked my ass off to get in. When I told Grandpa, I expected maybe a small nod of approval. Instead, he just said, "That's nice." That was it. No encouragement. No support, just indifference. Meanwhile, when Jessica announced she wanted to take a break from school to find herself, Grandpa funded her entire 6-month trip to Europe. Because of course he did. I let out a quiet breath, staring down at my coffee. This inheritance, it was never going to be fair, and I had been foolish to think it would be. I pulled the $1 bill from my pocket and set it on the table, flattening it out with my fingers. $1. That's all I was worth to him. I let out a bitter chuckle. And yet, despite everything, despite every insult disguised as a lesson, despite every time I was overlooked, despite every moment I was made to feel like I didn't belong, I still made it this far without him. And maybe that was the real lesson here. I had never needed my grandfather's approval. I had never needed his validation. And I sure as hell didn't need his money. I reached into my bag, pulled out a pen, and scribbled something onto the dollar bill before sliding it under my empty coffee cup. Then, without looking back, I walked out of the diner. A few minutes later, the waitress came by to clear the table. She lifted the coffee cup, revealing the $1 bill with a message written in bold, black ink. This is all I was worth to my family, but watch me turn it into something bigger. She blinked at it for a moment, then shrugged and pocketed the bill. For her, it was just another tip. For me, it was the beginning of something much, much more. Because if my grandfather thought I was worth $1, then I was about to prove him very, very wrong. I didn't go home right after the will reading. Instead, I walked through the city in a daze, replaying the moment in my head. $1. That was it. That was all my grandfather had left me, while my sister Jessica inherited everything. The Malibu estate, the family business, the entire bank account. I could still hear Ryan's mocking laugh. Don't spend it all at once. My mother's sigh, my father's silence. I should have been used to it by now, being the outcast, the unwanted one, but something about this moment hit differently. This wasn't just about money. It was about worth. And to them, I was worth $1 single. I finally stopped walking when I reached my tiny apartment. The place wasn't much, just a cramped studio with barely enough space for my bed and a desk, but at least it was mine. I dropped my keys on the table and pulled the envelope from my pocket, staring at the crisp dollar bill inside. I wanted to rip it in half. I wanted to scream, but instead I just laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh that echoed through the empty room. Fine. If this was all I was worth, then I'd turn it into something bigger. The job hunt, I wasn't naive. I knew I needed a job, and fast. The problem? My bank account was practically in the negative, and I had no safety net. So I spent the next few days doing the only thing I could, sending out resumes to every single place hiring. Restaurants, stores, offices. It didn't matter where, I just needed to work. Unfortunately, when you're desperate, people can smell it. I got rejection after rejection. Some places never even responded. Then finally, after what felt like hundreds of applications, I got a call. Sunset Coffee House. They were looking for someone to work the morning shift. 10-hour shifts, terrible pay, exhausting customers. I accepted immediately. The first shift, that changed everything. The first day was brutal. By the time my shift ended, my feet ached, my hands were covered in coffee stains, and my patience was non-existent. But then, something interesting happened. A group of wealthy businessmen walked in. You could tell just by looking at them. Expensive suits, Rolex watches, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing they never had to worry about money. They sat at a booth in the back, talking loudly about investments, startups, and making millions. If a business isn't making at least $20,000 a month, it's not worth it, one of them said, sipping his overpriced espresso. The problem isn't money, another one added. It's figuring out how to make it work for you. Something about those words stuck with me. Because at that moment, I realized I didn't have a single dollar working for me. I was the one serving coffee while they were talking about owning businesses. That night, when I got home, I was too tired to sleep, so instead I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Not because I wanted to be rich, not because I wanted to be like them, but because I was tired of feeling stuck. The first attempt and first failure. After a few nights of research, I stumbled across something interesting. Reselling. The concept was simple. Buy things cheap, sell them for more. It sounded doable. I listed a few old items from my apartment on a resale app, just to see if anything would happen. For 3 days, nothing. Then, finally, a message. Is this still available? My heart raced as I typed, yes. I sold my first item for $25. It wasn't much, but it was the first time I had made money without a boss paying me. So I kept going. I dug through every corner of my apartment, listing anything I didn't use. But eventually, I ran out of things to sell. So I went to flea markets. I bought an old jacket for $5 and sold it for $30. A purse for $8, resold for $50. And that's when it hit me. The problem isn't money. The problem is figuring out how to make it work for you. I didn't need a rich grandfather or a family fortune. I just needed to learn how to play the game. Scaling up. The next few months were a blur. I spent 14-hour days managing orders, responding to customers, and organizing shipments. At first, I was barely scraping by. Then, things started picking up. $2,500 a month, then $5,500, then $8,000. I couldn't believe it. One afternoon, after answering 60 messages in a row, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I was exhausted. Either I hire someone, or I'm going to burn out. So I hired Hannah to manage listings, then Dan, who handled shipments, then Megan, who had experience in digital marketing. And suddenly, we weren't just reselling online, we were running an actual business. Within months, our revenue tripled. We opened our own website. We started working with suppliers directly. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The big leap. At this point, we were making over $30,000 a month, but I wanted more. Selling online was great, but some products were better when people could see and touch them. So I decided to open a physical store. The idea terrified me. The rent alone was $3,000 a month. Setting it up would cost at least $50,000, but I did it anyway. On opening day, I wasn't sure if anyone would show up, but people came, a lot of them. We made almost $8,000 in sales on the first day alone. That night, as I stood in the empty store, I thought, Grandpa would be rolling in his grave if he knew this, because the granddaughter he left with $1 had just built a business worth millions. The family notices I hadn't spoken to my family in over a year. Then one day, my name appeared in a business magazine. Suddenly, they were all reaching out. Mom, sweetheart, why don't you come over for dinner? OMG, congrats, we should catch up. Families should support each other. Maybe we can help manage the business. Translation, they wanted a piece of it. They didn't care when I had nothing. But now that I had everything, now suddenly, we were family. I smiled, shaking my head. Too bad for them, because this time, I was keeping what was mine. I had spent the last year building my business from nothing. It started with $1, a joke from my family, a reminder that they thought I was worthless. Now, I had a thriving company, a team, and a store generating over $50,000 a month. And suddenly, the family who had once laughed in my face wanted to be a part of it. At first, they sent friendly texts. Sweetheart, come home for dinner. We should meet up and talk. Family should always support each other. I ignored them. Then came the serious proposals. My father called. Emma, listen, your business is growing fast. We think it's time to make things official. I raised an eyebrow. Official how? A family company, he said smoothly. We'll help with management, keep everything in the family. And by help, you mean? There was a pause. Then Jessica's voice cut in, confident as ever. We had a lawyer draft up a plan. We'd all have equal shares. I almost choked on my coffee. Equal shares? I built this business from scratch. Jessica laughed, like I was being ridiculous. You had some luck. Besides, we've always been a team, Emma. A team? Where was this team when I was working 14-hour shifts selling secondhand clothes just to survive? Where was this team when I was struggling and they were spending grandfather's fortune like water? But now that I was successful, suddenly, we were equals? I clenched my jaw. I'll think about it. It was a lie. I already knew my answer. The family dinner trap. A week later, my mother invited me over for dinner. I shouldn't have gone, but I was curious. When I arrived, the table was already set. Jessica, Ryan, my parents, even a lawyer was there. I sat down, eyeing them. What's this? My father cleared his throat. Emma, we know you've worked hard and we're proud of you. I almost laughed. That was the first time he had ever said that. Jessica slid a document toward me. We've been thinking about how to help you grow. If we formalize things, we can make sure everyone benefits. I picked up the papers. The proposal was clear. I would keep 40% of my business. The rest, 60%, would go to them. I set the document down. Then, I started laughing. Jessica frowned. What's funny? I wiped a tear from my eye. You all think I'm stupid, don't you? Ryan crossed his arms. We're giving you an opportunity, Emma. An opportunity? I scoffed. To give away my business. My mother put on her gentle voice, the one she used when she was trying to manipulate me. Sweetheart, we're a family. This isn't about taking anything from you. It's about keeping us together. I stared at her. Keeping us together? Where was that energy when you left me with $1? Silence. Let me make something clear, I said, pushing the contract back toward Jessica. My answer is no. Jessica rolled her eyes. God, Emma, don't be so childish. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. You always have to play the victim, don't you? I tilted my head. Tell me, what exactly have you done to deserve 60% of my company? Silence. Then my father, ever the businessman, sighed. Emma, don't throw away a good deal. I stood up. You know what? You're right. This is a great deal, just not for me. And with that, I walked out. The ultimate betrayal. I thought they would give up after that. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got an urgent call from my lawyer. Emma, your family is trying to register a business under your company's name. I froze. What? They've submitted paperwork to create a business almost identical to yours. If they succeed, they could steal your customers and ruin your brand. I gripped my phone. So that was their plan B. If they couldn't take my business, they'd steal it. I clenched my fists. Block it. Do whatever you have to do. Already on it. The counterattack. The next morning, I legally locked down my company. I trademarked the business. I copyrighted the branding. And then I filed a lawsuit for business fraud. I knew exactly what would happen next, and I was right. That afternoon, Jessica called. Her voice was mockingly sweet. Emma, you're overreacting. Overreacting? You tried to steal my company name. It's not your name. You didn't patent it first. I laughed. Well, I have now, and I'm suing you. There was a pause. Then Jessica's voice turned cold. We just want everyone to win, Emma. You mean like how I won when you took everything from me? She sighed. You're being so dramatic. And you're being a thief. See you in court, Jessica. I hung up. The family's downfall. It took less than a month for their world to crumble. I won the lawsuit. Jessica's new company was blocked. Ryan's bank accounts were frozen. Their attempts to steal from me had failed. But the best part? They were drowning in debt. While I had spent the last year building something real, they had been burning through the inheritance. Now they had nothing left, and suddenly they were desperate. The sweetest victory. A few weeks later, I was at a cafe when I spotted Jessica sitting in the corner. She was arguing with a lawyer. I walked over just to see the damage. Jessica. She looked up. Her face went pale. What are you doing here? She spat. I glanced at the foreclosure notice on the table. And suddenly, I understood. She was losing everything. I smirked. Shame the family didn't know how to support each other, huh? She glared at me. If looks could kill, I'd be dead. I leaned in, smiling. Don't spend it all at once. Then I turned and walked away, leaving her, and the family that abandoned me, with nothing. Reflection and the aftermath. It had been a year since my family betrayed me. A year since they left me with $1, laughed in my face, and told me not to spend it all at once. A year since I turned that dollar into a multi-million-dollar business. A year since I cut them off and watched them crumble. And yet, despite everything, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Not because I missed them. Not because I wanted revenge, but because part of me was still processing everything that happened. The world's reaction. After everything went down, I shared my story online, not because I wanted attention, not because I wanted people to pity me, but because I needed to get it all out. And the response? Massive. Thousands of people commented. Some were on my side. You did the right thing. They got what they deserved. Never let toxic family back in your life. Others hated me. You're cruel. They're still your family. You could have given them something, but one comment stood out, a simple question. Do you regret it? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed my response. No, I only regret not doing it sooner. And I meant it. Family is family. Right? People love to say, family is family, no matter what they do. No matter how much they hurt you, you should always forgive them. But why? Why is it that children owe their parents, but parents don't owe their children basic decency? Why is it that siblings can betray you, but you're the bad guy for refusing to let them back in? When my family left me with nothing, no one told them, you should have supported Emma. No one said, she's your sister, you should have shared. No one called them cruel. But the moment I succeeded without them, the moment I said, no, you don't get a piece of what I built, suddenly, I was the villain. I was the one who should have been more generous. I was the one who should have been the bigger person. It was ridiculous, and I refused to play that game. Closure? Or just an ending? I had cut them off completely. No texts, no calls, no contact. But deep down I knew it wasn't over. One day, they'd come back. Not because they cared about me, not because they realized their mistakes, but because they had no other choice. And sure enough, one day, they did. The unexpected visitor. I was at my office when my assistant knocked on the door. Emma, there's someone here to see you. I frowned. Who? She hesitated. Your mother? I felt my stomach twist. I hadn't seen her since the last time she tried to steal my company. I took a deep breath. Send her in. She walked in slowly, looking smaller than I remembered. Her expensive clothes were gone. Her perfect hair was messy. She looked tired. For the first time in my life, she didn't look like the woman who always had everything. She looked like someone who had lost it all. She sat down across from me. Emma, she said softly, it's been a long time. I nodded. What do you want? She sighed. I just want to talk. I crossed my arms. About what? About us. There is no us anymore, Mom. She flinched but nodded. I deserve that. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. I blinked. What? She looked down at her hands. I'm sorry for how we treated you. I'm sorry for what happened. I studied her carefully. Was she serious? Or was this just another manipulation attempt? I leaned forward. Are you sorry for what you did? Or just sorry because you lost everything? She swallowed hard. Both. I sat back, processing her words. For years I had dreamed of this moment. I had imagined her begging for forgiveness. I had thought it would make me feel better. But sitting there, looking at her, I just felt nothing. The final decision. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She slid it across the desk. What is this? I asked. She hesitated. A letter. Read it when you have time. I stared at it. Then I pushed it back toward her. I don't need it. Her face crumpled. Emma, please. I shook my head. Mom, I spent my whole life waiting for you to see my worth. Now I realize I don't need you to. Tears filled her eyes. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. She stood up slowly, like she had aged 10 years in a single moment. She looked at me one last time. I hope one day you can forgive us. Then she walked out of my life. And this time, I didn't stop her. The future without them. People say forgiveness is freedom. Maybe that's true. But for me, cutting them off was the real freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. I wasn't waiting for them to see my worth. I wasn't looking for their validation. I had built everything on my own, and I didn't need them anymore. Maybe one day, I'd feel differently. Maybe one day, I'd open that letter. Maybe one day I'd let them back in. But today I was finally free.